International Code Enforcement Network. I'm here with Jose Roig live from Pittsburgh at the International Code Council annual business meeting, and we unfortunately missed Ms. Muela, who's also here with us remotely, but she's here in spirit, and she's here on the internet. So before I begin, let me introduce you to Jose. Jose is ACE member, and he is also an ICC member, and he is also the director of Austin, Texas Code Enforcement Division. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jose. And Jose, can you introduce yourself?
All right. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Ceci. We're here live from Pittsburgh, from the David Lawrence Convention Center, home of the Pittsburgh Pirates, right there, right behind us. Home of the Roberto Clemente. I know they celebrated the Roberto Clemente Day last week. So we're excited to be here. It's been a great experience to be here live. As Pete said, I actually work in the city of Austin. I'm actually the director of the Austin Code Department, previously serving as a building official and in other capacities in the city. Last Friday was my 14th-year anniversary with the city of Austin, so I'm excited. It's been a great experience to be able to serve the public in that capacity, and I'm excited about, for the future of the code enforcement industry in our city, definitely.
So Jose, normally we start off to just tell us a little bit about yourself. How you got into code. I know you didn't grow up one day in Puerto Rico and say, "Hey, I want to be a code enforcement director." So,
that's a great question, Pete. Yes, no, I have some background on construction. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I love the design, the construction. I started working with my brother-in-law in construction. When I moved to the United States back in 1993. I was fascinated by the inspection industry. I actually became the first Hispanic to be licensed in the state of Massachusetts as a home inspector. And I quickly became a senior inspector in the private sector, doing both residential and commercial assessments, and which is very similar to a property maintenance inspection, right? We have to do inspect all the systems, do kind of a forensic analysis of the building. And then in 2007, I had the opportunity to actually come work for the city of San Antonio. And that's when I went to Texas. There's a saying that I wasn't born in Texas, but I got there as fast as I could, right? Great state, great opportunities. And that was my first experience with public service. And I got to tell you, Pete, once you got the taste of serving the public and seeing that you're making a difference in the lives of people, there's no way, to go back from that. That is the most rewarding experience. It's not so much about how much money you make or so on. It's about doing the work every day and going home knowing that you made a difference in somebody's life. So I started on the building inspection side. In 6 months later, I actually had the opportunity to work in the city of Austin. And there was no room for growth in the city of San Antonio. Great city, by the way. Know many people there. But in the city of Austin, they opened, their arms, and I've been very blessed to promote from within, from inspector position to a supervisor position to a manager position to the building official position in 2016. And in 2018, I had a great opportunity to become an assistant director for the Austin Code Department. I've been working with Austin Code all this time, so I knew the people. And I knew that I could make a difference, in this department. And I was fascinated about the whole code enforcement. I had plenty on the building side, right? And I wanted to work in the code enforcement side. We had a separate department in the city of Austin, and it was a great experience. And in November of last year, I was appointed director of the department. The previous director retired. And that's one thing I learned in my career early on, that many people in leadership positions were in retirement, qualified for retirement. And I heard the complaints many times from inspectors. Management doesn't know what we do, but it's not until we get, willing to actually move up to those positions that we can make a difference in the lives of the staff and the life of the community too.
I think that is so instrumental that you say that, Jose, because just kind of listening to what you've already shared about your tenure in Austin, I think it goes without saying how much of a positive impact you've had, not just on the community that you're serving, but also the community of your own inspectors, your own team. I know for me, I've had the pleasure of meeting Hilda Martinez, who was featured as one of our
Yes.
women leaders in code enforcement. I've interacted with Lourdes, and you have a great group of folks, and just really hearing their desire, their passion for what they do. It's like an extension of you, if you will, because you're paralleling a lot of what they've said. Also, one of the things that you said was, you took a liking and a direct care to the work that you do, which then, of course, is seen in your devotion to the work. And I think I always like to say, even to Pete, you know what, Pete? Folks are not in code enforcement simply because it's a profession, it's a job. They're in code enforcement because they have a direct desire, a direct care and passion for the work that we do. So I think it's great that your journey led you up to this point, and we see all the great things that you've done for Austin and the community that you serve.
Thank you.
And one of the things that you also didn't include Kenneth Rocha and Keisha
That's right,
Lara, who are
Kenneth.
also huge superstars. And one of the things I was talking to Jose, he has a segment says code enforcement stories from his staff.
Yes.
And I share those all the time because they're taking the time to come out and promote our profession is something that continually needs to be done. Here we're hanging out and we're like, hey, you guys are the internet guys. And it's such an awesome feeling because we're putting code on the map at IBM. It's such a great place, and
Yes.
IBM is such a great place. Jose belongs to the major city committee, right?
It's called the Major Jurisdiction Committee. We call it the MJC, for short. But that's a good point, Pete. We have to get involved. Being here in this conference, getting to know the code. It's not so much about it's how it's developed. And networking with people with like-minded people, right? They understanding where the code is coming from, right? And creating that passion in your staff. Years ago, you mentioned this to me yesterday. City of Austin wasn't that active on the code development, and it was really in the background. So wait a minute, we are the capital of Texas, right? We are the capital of Texas. Why we're not involved in here? But I'll tell you what. Thanks to good mentors that we have along the way, he was really promoting getting involved in the code. So that's how I actually get heavily involved in the code hearings. I was part of the major of the NJC. I call it the NJC, it's easier, and I became the chairman of the steering committee for the NJC. I'm working with people from Washington, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, California, New York, Denver, Colorado, Florida. I mean, it's been a tremendous experience. And one of the best things that comes out of that is best practices. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We are facing the same challenges. But I'm glad I was actually able to do that because in 2018, when I became the chairman of the committee, then I brought code enforcement into the committee. It was mostly about development, building development. And I told it, wait a minute, I'm in code enforcement, and that no problem. So I brought that view into the committee, and the things that we share, the experiences, and the synergetic power that comes out of that committee is tremendous. I'm also part of the code development, the code action development committee for the 16 building code. We have members of the staff that was actually working on the property maintenance code, and we have people that we are promoting our staff to listen to the hearings, to listen about the code, learn how this is developed, how this is happening. So when we go and explain this to the community, one of the major goals that we have is educating, right? So if we don't understand where the code is coming from, who wrote this, why they wrote it that way, that's a main a key component to go out to the community and explain what you're doing and the importance of what you're doing.
And one thing that Jose and I talked about yesterday, and this is the beautiful thing about conferences, you get to network. And, you know, I've only met Jose on the internet, you know, which it's a weird thing to say, but, you know, when I saw him, it felt like it's a long friend that I had for a long time, because our goals and our values just mesh together, which to me is so awesome to see. And one thing we're discussing is the International Code Council, and we should be making videos in Spanish.
Yes.
And you know what? We pledged to ourselves, and we're volunteering you, Cecilia, and Alvaro Nunez, if you're watching, we're volunteering you too, to do more outreach for our Hispanic folks so they can understand the code, because a lot of times it's ignorance of the code that gets you in trouble. And if we can provide that service to our residents, I think that would be beneficial. And if it's coming from, you know, the Midwest or the East Coast, or on the West Coast where you're at in the morning, where it's noon over here, yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, you would be surprised. I mean, the difference that you can make when you can connect with people in the community. I'll tell you about one experience that we have. We conduct a monthly meeting with the stakeholders, and we invite tenants to this meeting so they can talk about their experiences and challenges. So they form an association and they meet with us. And I remember the first meeting I had as a director, and they drove up to the meeting, which is, you know, many times doesn't happen. And we had this tenant, and we had a translation service, right? And he was explaining in Spanish the challenges that he was having in his community, and they were translating, and I was listening. And when I direct the response to him, I actually spoke Spanish to him, and that changed the whole environment in the room. He knew you are listening to me. You understand what I'm going through. So it makes a difference, and we had to do that. I'm being really passionate about that one. Years ago, I remember in a conference, I stood up on the business meeting, and I told the CEO Dominic and the president at the time, if we are international, what are we doing to reach out internationally? You know, how are we translating? After that, they translated some of the codes, and we're excited. I think we're going to have some education coming up with you know, several ways that we're working on it, and I'm excited about that aspect of the education. I'm passionate about teaching.
And you know, one of the things that we always say, hey, if we verbalize it, it comes to fruition. And you know what? This is something
That's right.
I'm telling you, Jose is teaching a class at the ACE conference, the evolution of code. And, you know, he's been putting it together, and people, if you are attending the ACE conference, you need to take this course. So, you know, big plug for ACE, you know, but, you know, end of the day, you know, we have such good information, learning what people have and want here. You know, just even meeting Keisha, you know, the permit, we're like, let's work on some permit stuff. We need to get the permit techs, because they're the front line of a lot of code enforcement or building departments, but they're paid less. So we need to promote how valuable they are, just like code enforcement officers. We need to continue to promote how important we are.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can chime in my Latino language, es muy importante para la gente latina que está escuchando hoy esta mañana que nosotros seamos esa fundación para nuestros inspectores que hablan español, para la comunidad en la cual servimos, poder proveerles a ellos información sobre los códigos para que ellos lo entiendan es muy instrumental. So that being said, when I started in building, when I started as a telephone operator many years ago, and I started to wanting to go out in the field and landed in this beautiful profession that's code enforcement, I remember a couple of inspectors would take me out in the field and ride along so I could be a translator for them. But in addition to that, they all purchased a book that was called Spanish in a Pinch. And It was an ICC book. Jose, I'm sure you remember this book. And I remember looking at it and I was like, what? and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, we got to get some more Spanish literature out there. So I think it's so great that, the considerations being made to provide that Spanish speaking language out there to really be, as you said, Jose, international, truly be international and have that international impact. I think our communities would be super thankful. I think our code teams and our inspection teams would be super thankful, and our building departments, because now we would have an extra tool to provide them that knowledge base that they need. going back to something that you said, Jose, that I think is also equally as important. You said it is important for us to get our staff involved in code hearings and code development. And I can't tell you enough how important it truly is. Jose is 100% correct on that. So being an instructor myself, asking the question, asking the questions of people, how many of you know how code development works? How many of you know how the IPMC comes together? And a lot of the answers are, well, we just kind of rely on ICC, which is great. But at the same time, we're the boots on the ground, right? We're the enforcement mechanism. And so it's so important for us to have that voice and to get involved and to say, hey, we see this works. We don't see that works. How can we meet in the middle? How can they be more structured so we have good enforcement model codes? So that is, I think, great that you do that, Jose, for your department. I think, and I encourage many departments out there to do exactly that, to follow that model and really get their, employees and their field staff involved in code development. The permatecs, right? They are the front line. I used to be a permatech many, many years ago, so they have a very special place in my heart. And again, it comes together. There's a quote by Henry Ford that says that coming together is the beginning. Keeping together is progress, but working together is success, right? And so the success of all of our departments nationwide and globally comes down the line in the form of being involved and supportive of each other and supportive of our codes. So thank you so much, Jose, for really putting that information out there and really encouraging that of our community of building industry leaders.
And I'm going to chime in on that one because months ago, maybe Jose called me and he goes, what's your opinion on window screens? And it was funny because, So, I told him what I thought and it's funny because that comes up in hearings where people make suggestions or do whatever. And end of the day, you have it's a joke, but end of the day, you see like anybody who has passion has the ability to change the code. You just have to believe it and have to have good questions about it. Yeah. So.
We laugh.
You have to be involved. And
you do.
I guess the best thing is like throughout the career, you're gonna be working with mentors, right? You want to mentor people out. You want to be a mentor, because the same way they did with me, I want to do with the staff that I have. And one of the things that I learned with my mentors is like get involved, get to network with the people that are making the difference out here in the codes. With the MJC, one of the items that I put in the agenda, and I'm going to be working next year, is a best practice for jurisdictions to get their voting members, not only to get involved, and Ceci, this is a good point, getting involved, but understanding what they're voting on, right? Yes. Like big cities, we have 12 votes here and 12 votes over there. We make a difference. After the hearings are finished this week, we're going to have an opportunity to actually vote on those codes. So eventually, what is put in the books is what the membership wants, right? So understanding, how do you engage your staff so they can understand what they're voting on, so they can understand the code, the impact that it makes. And that screen proposal, it didn't went through. Thank you, Cecilia.
She's like, boom.
I gotta tell you, let me tell you about that, because it actually brought the attention of the industry, right? And when I talked to the industry, okay, so you want that in here, but you don't have this requirement in any other code. So now for the next cycle, they're going to look at the other codes where it needs to be. So that's a good thing. You bring attention to something, you have that conversation, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and
I think it's important
for our audience that is out there watching us. We share a little laugh because I sit on the Code Hearings Committee, and Jose brought forth his screen proposal, and I had an opinion about that. Not that my opinion is the end all of what gets decided, but it also goes to say that as professionals, as industry leaders, we get to interact with each other, right? We get to see perspectives. We get to see Jose's perspective, my perspective, and work from there and see how that works overall for everyone. So it was a really good interaction that we had, and also at the same time, it's great to be able to listen to those things and bring attention for them. So that's why we had that little chuckle, because it's good to be able to have that back and forth for sure.
So this is a unique setup that we have. So I'm gonna step away and I'm gonna read some of the comments because I see comments coming in, and so I want to make sure that we get comments on what's going on. So go ahead and have the conversation.
No, and that's a good point that Cecilia brings, but it's about getting involved. And when you do that for the staff, I mean, they know that you actually care for them. One thing that happened in this conference, Ceci, we were actually at the launch meeting, and they were talking about leadership. It's like you don't need to have a title to be a leader, right? Anybody can be a leader in the department, but having a type of leadership that you actually care about the people first. For the past year and a half, since March of 2020, our lives changed tremendously. That we went to this virtual environment. We went to teleworking, right? And we have seen the challenges that our staff is facing. One thing that I'm doing in my department, as we actually do town hall meetings and department-wide meetings, we're talking about resiliency. We're talking about surviving and thriving. Making sure that you take care of yourself. Understanding the challenges that we're facing. When are we going to go back to normal? If it's any normal out there, I don't know. But we have to be flexible. We have to take care of our people. We have learned we can do work in different ways. So it's been an interesting year and a half, to say the least. I know it's been challenging with many losses too, but we're learning. We need to be adaptable. But people need to know that you are interested in their behalf, and when you get them involved, when you get them empower them to make decisions, and it's just an amazing thing. So having the opportunity to actually lead a department of 152 people, we had about 70 guys in the field. I mean, we are a big department. We handle property maintenance, we handle neighborhood abatement, both commercial, residential. We do, our department is kind of unique. We do licensing of motels, short-term rentals. We have a repeat offender program. We have many things and that's what I'm excited about the class, because the class talks about evolution of the code enforcement responsibilities. And I was telling Pete, I think we have an identity crisis in the code enforcement industry. We don't really, there's not a standard, right? There's no, code enforcement should be this, and it should be structured this way. We see that, police department, animal control, solid waste services, development services. We see a standalone department. So I think that now, after I've seen an evolution in the last 10, 12 years, we cannot get into a point that we need to really, raise the profile of our industry and explain how important we are. We are essential. We never stopped working during this pandemic, and we took on many other responsibilities that we never had before. So our staff was kind of outside the comfort zone, right? It's like, well, I don't do enforcement for mask or occupancy, So we've seen that. So we need to keep that in mind when we actually continue to promote our industry that we're doing.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that we also talked about was, that topic of like, oh, that's another department. I'm like, no, we're the problem solvers. That's who we are. We've always been the problem solvers. And it brings me to another plug. Cool. So, we created the Standards and Codes Academy because we understand that it's so broad, because you have folks that will tell you, oh, no, building has no place in code enforcement. And then some people that will tell you, hey, all your tenants are trying to kill you. No, people want to be served. People want to be helped, because sometimes they don't know. And, that's one of the reasons we created this whole organization as the Standards and Codes. And, and we get to have finally our first in live conference in the city of
Austin, Texas.
Mr. Roy opened his arms and said, come on in. And that's where we're doing it. Yes. So, yep. And he will be teaching a course. He just got volunteered right now. So Cecilia is an awesome instructor in her own right. but that's one of the reasons why we got together and created that organization. You know, we're all different individuals. We're not one. You know, we kind of like to say, kind of like the Avengers. You know,
Yeah.
we're all our own, doing our own jam. And sometimes, guess what? There's a big problem. Let's put us together.
It's about people that are passionate about what they're doing. I mean, you have to have a passion for this. It's not, you know, you're not going to become a millionaire with this, you know, but it's the passion to serve the community. And one thing that I learned when I was progressing in my leadership career, I didn't understood the concept. I didn't knew the name of the concept, but I immediately recognized that I was a servant leader. And when I learn about that, it's like, wait a minute, this is who I am. This is the type of leadership that I have. And I understood the weaknesses and the strengths, you know, how to deal with, you know, with that type of leadership. Because sometimes servant leaderships, you know, we tend to neglect ourselves, you know, putting people in front of us. But, you know, took care of that one. But I think that's the key. When you actually serve in the community, when you're actually passionate about what you're doing, that's the key right there. And it's about training, you know, and I love what you guys doing because you bring in quality training. I mean, right now, I've never seen it like I've seen it now. I mean, this broadcast, the things that you're putting out there in the internet, we are, you know, you guys are really doing a great job to promoting. And that's why we actually put the videos about the code inspectors, you know. Tell us about your experience, you know, tell us, you know, a case that you handle. How do you handle that case? And one of the things that we did in the department a few years ago was to create a code academy. You know, we want to make sure that when we put people out there in the community, they know what they're doing. So it actually became a best practice that we put in the NJC. But you have to invest in your people, not only in training. And I will tell you this to executives that are listening and managers, you have to invest. You have to give them the best that you can, the best equipment so they can do their work out there. The best training you can get. You know, put some money aside for this conference. They need to come to the conference. They need to learn about this community, even if they're just inspectors. You know, they need to learn about this.
And in speaking to a lot of like-minded individuals, you know, the ideas that spawn out of this place, it's amazing. I mean, I'm telling you, if anybody that knows me and knows how crazy I am to like all these ideas, look, you're laughing, dude. That's another inside joke. My mind is going at 100 miles an hour, and I'm like, we're gonna do a Latino thing. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. You know, poor Rachel's over there at her hearings, but she's like, I'm invested in the kids and code enforcement thing that we're doing with Fiona the Fox. You know, and she's like, that's my jam. I'm like, hold your horses there, kiddo. You know, she's here. You know, we're like, hey, she was gonna go over here and do our interview. I'm like, Ceci's not here, but then Ceci's here. So it worked out perfectly. So it's awesome. And, you know, I'm telling you, the energy here, this is my first time at IBM. And Cecilia told me the energy is just crazy. It's even crazier that I get to network with guys like Jose. You know, it's like, wow, you know, it's just amazing. I'm in awe of Jose.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was telling Pete, you know, Pete, and I let Rachel know as well. I said, take it all in. I'm telling you, I can't stop saying enough that when I first went in, I was like a little kid at a candy store, because I really was. I was so completely just immensely wowed by everything that was going on. And you know what it was? It wasn't so much that ICC does great things, you know, as far as getting the network base, but it was the direct care of the family that you're walking into. Everyone was so nice. Everyone was so welcoming. Hey, how are you? This is who I am. Let me know if I can help. Everyone's rooting for each other. Everyone's rooting for each other to succeed and to work together. And I think that is exactly why Jose, you know, recommending for folks to send their staff to these is so instrumental, because it breathes life into what you're trying to do as far as your own profession, your own job. And so the one thing that COVID did was it made us understand how resilient we truly are. But part of that resiliency comes from having those network base, right? Having that strength in your family, your industry, building industry family, having supportive managers like Jose, supportive colleagues, having ICC there to rely upon. Hey, you know what? We just got thrown in out of left field. Let's figure it out together. So yes, if you can make it to ABM, please do. Please send your staff. Let them go and experience that. Let them see what it all really is about. And it truly is a direct care for the communities that you serve. So yeah, we wear many, many hats. And I think, Jose, you were talking about the videos. The videos are so important because I had one city manager who I had the honor of presenting before and talking to him a little bit about who I was. And the one thing he said to me was this, and never escaped my mind. He said, you know what, Cece? Every time we hear about code, it's always complaints. It's always you need more money. It's always you don't have enough staff, But when you came in, you gave us a different perspective. You said, look at the great things we did. Look what we fixed over here. Look how we gave back to the community. Look what we're working on now. And I think that when we do the outreach and we literally let people know who we are as people, as humans, right? Because we're not robotic. We feel. We want to see people succeed and thrive. When they really get to know what we're about, what we do, and our direct care, it does things to people. It gives them a different perspective. And so, that is so important to do, for sure.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Ceci, because you have to be, I tell my staff all this time, years ago, there was a culture about, we don't want to connect with the community. We don't want to open up, too much of it. It's like, no, we have to be transparent. Not only we have to be transparent, we have to be honest, and they need to understand what we're doing. If we have a challenge, let's talk about it with the community. And we did that. I mean, it's interesting that even during the pandemic, we have more engagement with the community than we ever had before. And I think it was actually easier because we had these virtual meetings that we invited the community to actually join. And we started doing these monthly meetings with advocates and stakeholders. And you know that once you do that, they go around and they talk to the city council and things like that. And when they understand, I remember one meeting that I had with the stakeholders where they wanted to know about the budget. So say, hey, here it is. This is how we're using the money that you are giving us. You know? And after that meeting, they were like, wow, we never had an experience like this. We never understood until now. And after that, they were advocating for code to their politicians. So, that's a great point. They need to understand who we are. And when you get, you get a lot of complaints, but when you get that email you get that positive email that comes out once in a while, just highlight it. We have a session on our meetings that we do in a quarterly meeting. It's called Mission Moments. And what we do before when we had the whole department, we started reading these emails that we get from customers because they need to know that. They need to know that they're making a difference. And even though you get more complaints because people are mad because you're telling them, oh, you have to fix this and that, you do get those. You do get those positive emails. And even people that say, well, your inspector was here, and thank you, because I didn't know that I couldn't build this without a permit, and he took the time to explain to me why, and he was patient with me, and he told me where to go, to actually fix this. So when we get those emails, highlight the staff, and make sure you have that communication with the people that make policy changes.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of communities that they lack that understanding that you have to, we're always considered the messenger of bad news. That's what we are. But it doesn't mean the message has to be delivered in a tone that's not welcoming.
Yes.
And a lot of times you have to take the time and educate the public on what it is that they're doing. And, going back to the whole Hispanic thing, when a lot of the presentations up, and I say, soy el que enfuerza los códigos, they're like, what is that? I go, okay. And then I would have to say, okay, ¿quién ha oído de la ciudad? Que les va a caer la ciudad. Every single hand goes up. I go, yo soy la ciudad. They 100% understand that. It's the funniest thing. But you have to deliver the message. And it's funny because that breaks the ice. And they always ask questions about, I got written up for garage conversion. Somebody was selling food out and the city came by. And it's explained to them, hey, there's health standards. If the city or jurisdiction allows it, you can pull a permit. And this is another thing that we are going to circle back on and say, how do we help the resident comply. And that's, yeah, we can, promote code enforcement and how awesome we are, but we also have to go back and say, hey, how do we help you resident do this? And that's another component that's missing. And that's something that we've taken on to say, hey, let's do this. Yeah.
I mean, we have a mission in the Department of the City of Austin is to build a better and safer Austin. And it says together, through code education, collaboration, and ultimately enforcement. And I often present that vision to stakeholders and staff, and I let them read it, and I say, what is the most important word in that whole statement? And they go, oh, building and safer. And I said, no, the most important word is together. We are in this together. It's what we do, how we're going to do it, but we want to do it together. We want to work with the community, and education is a big part. Sometimes people, I say they violate the code because they don't know the code. If you don't know something. So when you go there and explain, you know what? Well, that fence is a little bit higher than what the code allows. And we have this weird, City of Austin and many major cities have this weird land development codes, right? Sometimes. And we have to enforce it. We are out there. And we get the complaints from the neighbor, and, my neighbor has, in the yard, and things like that. So we have to go out there and communicate with the people. And but that's the main thing. Educate. Have that conversation, communication. A few years ago, people it was so hard to access an inspector after they went to your home. So we improved that too. We issue cell phones. We allow people to text them, the inspector, to communicate with the inspector directly. So that communication has gone a long way, because that's what you want to do. You want to talk to that person that is getting that complaint and having that issue, so you can explain how you're going to fix it. That's the ultimate goal. I don't want to take you to court. I don't want to take you to an admin hearing. I don't want to take you to Buildings and Standards Commission. That's not my goal. My goal is that you fix it so you can make the community better.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. And exactly what you said is breaking it down in that regard.
Yes.
One of the things is when we're out there and we know that there's going to be a violation letter, instead of walking away and letting that violation letter show up, you could always say, hey, listen, just know that you're going to get a letter in the mail. It's going to sound a little rough, notice of violation, notice of order, whatever it may be, but please know it's formality. Right? You and I have already spoken. We're going to work together. And that way, when they get that notice in the mail, they're not thrown off and they say, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Look at this rough letter that says violation or notice in order. You're already kind of prepping them for it. You're explaining to them it's formality. It's part of the process, but we've already spoken. So I think that exactly what you said is instrumental, being able to really break it down to say, I know it's probably not something that's desirable, but these are the codes and that's why we're here. Let's figure it out together, versus we've got to do it. It's a different feel when the delivery plays a huge part, the delivery and education.
Well, when you do deliver, sometimes the appearance of you coming, how you knock on the door, or you pound on the door, if you're ringing the doorbell, it makes a big difference. And I always say, look, the way you present yourself is a representation of the city, because some of these folks will never, ever deal with the city unless they do something with code enforcement. And, they didn't seek us, we sought them. And when you come up to them, you can't expect them to know the code. I'm like, sir, ma'am, can I see your copy of the IRC so I can point out your violation? It doesn't happen like that.
Right.
It doesn't, right?
Right.
You have to and not only that, but you have to bring it down to a level where they understand. And, for anybody that's, doing the seeing the videos on the tutorials on the doodle videos that I've done, it explains something. Okay, you can't keep your trash cans out there because you can attract wild animals. You can't save parking spaces. You can't, you're attracting scavengers into your neighborhood, people that may look for identity theft or see what kind of new TV you bought. It's advertisement for, and it's just sometimes, people that scavengers recycle and throw trash on the floor. It's important to tell somebody, because if you go somewhere and, hey, your trash cans are here and you're in violation of section 123.7 of the Austin Municipal Code, you're going to get a ticket. If you don't put them in, that's the wrong
way
target. And just here's another plug. I'm plugging away today. So one of the things that we introduced here, we have a free field training officer module that is free for anybody. If you don't have resources and you just want to learn, just email me. It's proque@fourleafinc.com, and we'll send you a free 20-hour module, which includes on how to present yourself, how to talk. I do the documentation, the 1 hour course. It's actually a 2 hour course for report writing and documentation. It just gives you basic samples of what you can do. And, a lot of jurors, like for me, the way I learned code enforcement was I took a ride along with each inspector for 2 days. And then they put me out into the field, and I'm like, okay. And, and now that going back, those weren't the best inspectors ever.
Yeah.
But you know what? I learned from, the blind following the blind.
And that's a good point, because throughout the career, we experience different type of leadership management. And I always say that you always learn from everybody, right? Maybe what to do, what not to do. You take the positive, you put outside the negative. But it's a good experience to actually do that. But I understand that many jurisdictions may not have the resources. I don't have the budget to have a training program. I don't know how to do it. I mean, I'm new to this. So look out. I mean, just reach out to people like Pete, and Cecilia, myself. Look out and ask. That's a good thing about the networking and the dealing with the major cities. We can share those experiences. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we can actually help you, build the resources and things like that. But that's a great thing. One thing that we learned through this pandemic, Pete, and I think that is important, is we had to reprioritize many ways, right? All of a sudden, we were like tasked with enforcing COVID orders that we never done before. We had to reshift the services in the department. So it's been, we're not out of this yet, right? We are, a year and a half on this. We've seen the data, COVID-19 cases going up and down. Staff feels, sometimes, people say, teleworking, and it works. We keep doing some of the work. The administrative staff is working from home, and they're doing the work. But this is not the normal, right? So we had to be mindful of that, and we, understanding the political environment and all the challenges that we're facing with COVID-19. I think that it has brought to light that code enforcement is essential in the cities. They need a department.
Well, I think we froze a little, but I'm still live. I'm still here. We're going to wait for Pete and Jose to come back on, you guys. But I hope that you guys have been enjoying this broadcast and all the great information coming straight from the annual business meeting for ICC in Pittsburgh. For those of you that are there, I'm hoping that you're having a blast and really taking it all in and really learning to, network and get all that good info and contacts from all the awesome professionals that are attending the annual business conference. As we wait for them to come back on, and hopefully they do, I'm sure they'll share some more information. But as Jose was saying, if you are in need of some additional resources, would like, to discuss processes, how to move your department forward, how to streamline your inspections, you have questions about how to maneuver through the age of COVID, definitely feel free to reach out to Jose Roig of City of Austin, or Pete Roque over at Four Leaf, or even myself. I'm at the City of Santa Rosa. We'd be more than happy to help out in any way that we can in assisting you with any resources that we may have available. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I don't know that Pete and Jose are going to be able to make it back on, but we definitely appreciate y'all being with us this morning, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your morning. For those of you attending ABM, we hope that you enjoy the rest of your ABM experience, to include the banquet tonight. Should be pretty remarkable. So everyone take care, and we'll chat soon.